Welcome back to the Common Sense Crypto channel, everyone. As always, Rich is here with another video on XRP today. So, wherever you are in this vast planet, I hope you're all having a nice day today. We're going to discuss XRP, which I should have brought up in a prior video. This comes from Cowboy Sec, which authorizes trading in grayscale digital large cap funds that include Bitcoin, ADA, Solana, XRP, and Ethereum. I'm also interested in seeing how this performs. Since the price of these cryptocurrencies is soaring this alt season, you can be sure that everyone wants to profit from this market in the upcoming months. At the same time, we will witness retail FOMO as everyone will desire a chance to participate. A supply shock for XRP is unavoidable, according to experts. Don't sell your XRP ever. This is from Black Swan Capitalist, however, he just brings up JP Morgan in this passage. According to the JP Morgan branch manager he spoke with, the bank intends to provide lending and borrowing with digital assets as security. Remarkably, the bank's study included reference to Ethereum and Bitcoin, but said nothing about XRP. He considers it an intentional omission. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other digital assets were mentioned in that report. The problem, he argued, is that the silence surrounding XRP says a lot. He thinks it will be too late for regular investors to profit by the time major media outlets officially acknowledge institutional engagement with XRP. And I concur with that. I predict that XRP will be significantly higher than $100 by the time it is discussed in the mainstream media. They do not want you to invest in cryptocurrencies at this time, not when it's only $3 and change. When it's more than $100, they want people to feel FOMO. Additionally, all banks will become involved with XRP. Take a look at its intended use. Gary Gensler returned, but he was completely destroyed on CNBC. Listen to it. Many of the things you did are being undone by them. And what do you think of their current actions? I'm rather proud of what we've done. Additionally, the crypto community is thrilled that you are no longer there and that he is still there. Reflecting on it, do you believe that was the correct call after all? I believe so. As you can see, the United States is experiencing a surge in innovation and leadership in this area, and a significant increase in funding. In terms of public interest, there might be more capital. The general public is intrigued. I understand. But do you believe that what they're doing is risky for investors? Set Bitcoin aside. However, the majority of other tokens have no connection to any fundamentals. What are the goods, as Warren Buffett would say? What are the earnings? What do they sell? And so on. Furthermore, he continues to promote the notion that Bitcoin alone is not a security. He acts in that manner. He seems to have to smuggle Bitcoin into the discussion. Gary Gensler maintained an uneven playing field. A level playing field is now available to us, and he caused harm to the entire area in this way. Ondo is the source of this. Listen to this out. Do you think that because the market is clear, we will have a huge invention boom? Looking over one's shoulder is no longer necessary, yes, without a doubt. For an institution, it's night and day at the moment. When a brilliant measure passes, everyone kind of thinks, wait a minute, this Congress can actually get stuff passed, and digital assets are important enough to do it. To be honest, I believe that the Clarity Act might have a greater influence than the Genius Act, from the standpoint of market structure and the potential capabilities of Flames. However, it is evident that this Congress has the power to enact legislation and that the app prioritizes digital assets. In light of all of that, all of these strata are genuinely rushing to develop a digital asset strategy and begin putting it into practice, since cryptocurrency is also beginning to grow to a point where it is extremely difficult to ignore. Crypto is now too important to ignore, and Gary refrained from saying that. Clarity of regulations. They intended to stifle innovation so that the large banks could prosper, thus they didn't want to provide any clarification at all in this area. He and Elizabeth Warren, along with a few others in Washington, were employed by the large banks. We have the crypto crackdown for that reason. But pay attention, He said TradFi is moving quickly to develop a plan for digital assets. These days, all of these organizations wish to work with digital assets, and Johnny Dean is the source of this. Many of our elected politicians are still owned by the banks, as seen by the Genius Act's ability to stop yield from going straight to the client from the issuer. Massachusetts's two U.S. senators, Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey, are two excellent examples. To make America the global center of cryptocurrency would be a betrayal if they were to pass such an amendment. So picture it this way, saying, "Hey, I want you to custody my digital assets and get me yield from those digital assets." You go to the bank. The bank then replies, "Okay, we'll take care of your digital assets, but we'll only give you 1% yield while the bank gets 3%, 4%, or 5%. They want to maintain the bank's dominance, therefore that's what they want to do. The difference between what has transpired over the past 50+ years and what is happening today is that something has changed and at last surfaced that is a major disruption to the banks. Crypto is exactly that. You can completely avoid the banks thanks to it. They want to include this in that brilliant bill, but it eliminates all the middlemen. Thus, yield on stable coins is not available to people. All of the yield would be collected by the banks. What causes XRP to reach $1,000? EZA eventually went into further detail regarding this. Here's how they believe it will get at their prediction. I believe the thesis you had cost $1,000. Was it predicated on a beginning shift in the SWIFT model? The expansion of the XRP ledger, the stablecoin's possible growth, or any combination of the three? Yes. That's a really intriguing subject, and many people requested a more thorough answer, which I'm presently working on providing. However, I believe that it's a blend of all of them for the sake of this, at least on a high level. SWIFT is undoubtedly a significant component, but the use cases really drive a lot of it. That all of these amazing initiatives that are emerging and truly using the XRP ledger in many ways are something we are actually witnessing firsthand. In real life, DeFi and finance are obviously very popular use cases, but as I mentioned earlier, billions and billions of dollars being sent from Americans to people in other countries for both charitable and business purposes, and various use cases. Eventually, when those apps begin to be utilized on an institutional level, you'll notice that there's not only increased activity on the XRP ledger, there is undoubtedly a massive explosion that has occurred numerous times, but you also notice that people are beginning to concentrate more on retail and the technology, which is why firms like Nvidia, for instance, have experienced price hikes of 100 times. Is because when retail begins to arrive, they realize that AI is now truly taking off. What is the most effective way for me to invest in that using Nvidia's products? In the end, I believe that the most intriguing aspect of the entire narrative will be when those 93% of individuals, there are clearly fewer accountants without internet connection, etc., because a significant number of people who do not presently own cryptocurrency enter the market and discover that XRP exists. Yes. Additionally, the price has increased. That's right, you did. Thus, he is discussing the proliferation of projects on the XRP ledger, together with a significant surge in institutional adoption and retail FOMO. That's how we end up with $1,000 worth of XRP. He's correct, too. In other words, we are headed toward that event. And we'll probably get there with only institutional adoption, in my opinion. SWIFT's replacement by Ripple is but one aspect of the situation. And I believe we're looking at a healthy, respectable 3-digit plus for XRP, probably somewhere between $600 and $900. Assuming Ripple were to take roughly 10% of SWIFT's revenue right out of the gate. However, you then begin to account for everything else that is happening. It begins to reach